Hi Swapnil, welcome to the second season of Design Rendezvous. I'm so excited to do this with you because I think we've been talking for a while and finally we get a date that is conducive. And I really feel this is a special, topic to my heart because it's a family topic, and we'll dive into that more. While something that water has always been a conversation in the house. While parents came from a space before they moved to Mumbai from an area where there was a lot of drought, so they've grown up valuing water no matter how much of excess do they have, right? And which is why this episode is very close to my heart, and I want to dive straight into the first question, right? The importance of water is perhaps best described by the former World Bank Vice President Dr. Ismail, who in 1995, he said that if the wars of this century were fought over oil, the wars of the next century will be fought over water. Unless we change our approach to managing this precious and vital resource. And I think as I was internalizing this and reading articles over it, I don't think the mass of India really cares too much about the next century. And I don't mean this in a negative way. I don't think so. We have the mental bandwidth and the vision to think of the next century, because the next 10 years only, we feel like, I don't know, what difference can I make, right? And I feel like to make a difference in our daily lives is more important than a one-off, right? Which will, help the climate and ourselves, in turn. So talk to us about, the reason behind this passion of yours, and talk to us about the journey that you've, got on.
So thank you, Payal, for having me, and for the opportunity to talk more about water. And as you rightly mentioned, water has been, I think, one topic which has really been out of sight, out of mind for mass majority of the population, and that is something very very critical in how human civilization has evolved over last thousands of years. So what got me also started working towards water was a lot of first-hand experiences where I was personally seeing the issues where whether it would be a whole campus not having water supply, or it would also be remote rural areas where water access was a huge problem. So we have to wind back the clock to I would say 2012, and we are right in college, second year of my college at NIT Calicut, and we were looking at one problem which had come from a competition called Imagine the Future of Water in City. So we started looking at all the centralized water infrastructure which is there in cities, and what we realized that first of all, this kind of infrastructure has been pretty much outdated. It was laid down 50-70 years back, and it's the same thing which is continuing. And whenever a city grows, the population outside on the fringes or outskirts of cities doesn't usually get access to this municipal centralized water supply. So they start using bore wells, or if their bore well or groundwater supply is not really good, they start getting this tanker water supply coming to them. So that really got us into thinking what could be the next stage of water infrastructure which is more accessible and doesn't depend on an existing water source. Could be groundwater or could be even surface water, which we usually take for granted. And in 2016, what happened was, in our college campus, which is almost 25 kilometers away from the city, there was a dry spell which happened in the city of Calicut. So our college, there was nearby river which dried up, and the same water was actually coming to our college campus through a centralized water treatment plant, like a small one. But because the river dried up, our college had no water. And what the authorities used to do was, they used to call these water tankers. And because there was almost 5,000 students in the campus, each student was just getting about 2 buckets of water per day. So that was the kind of water rationing which was going on, and we lived through that for almost 3 to 4 weeks. So that again got us into thinking that like even in a city like Calicut, where it rains a lot, there's good infrastructure also, but when such situations occur, you usually don't have a lot of choices, and you don't have a reliable infrastructure to depend on in such cases. and that's the reality for many billions of people all around the world. Similarly, in 2017, I was working with a non-profit from Canada, and then we visited many remote areas in rural Gujarat, in Rajasthan, and we realized that for many such populations, access to water is really hard. Sometimes they have to spend hours just collecting water. Some things we take for granted in all of our cities. So that was again one experience which led us to thinking that what next can we do with water, and what kind of new innovations we can bring in the water sector. So that's how we got started working on this idea, and then we have been developing this further.
That's fantastic, because I think when you started Uravu Labs, right, that literally harvests renewable water from inexhaustible atmospheric moisture, right? Now, while this is logically understandable, I think there's so many process-led components that might not even register to a lot of people. So, to tell us about the process, and I'm also aware that there are other players, perhaps globally and locally, and how different are you, and why is it that this is going to work? I would say, because a lot of people feel like, yeah, this is great, but does it have scale? Am I sitting, and I'm sitting in Mumbai, am I going to have access to something so amazing as this?
Of course. So when we started working on this idea, we first looked at what was readily available in the market, and just out of college we realized that there is one particular kind of technology which is an air conditioning based system. What happens in an air conditioning based system is you have to cool the air to a very low temperature, and then water, whatever moisture is in the air, that starts to condense and form water. So that was the first set of technology and prototype we developed right in college, just after graduating. But there were many I would say drawbacks to that technology. One is it's not very efficient, consumes a lot of power, and it really depends a lot on the relative humidity of the place, which is a measure of how moist the air is in the atmosphere. And when we realized that we started looking deeper into the market dynamics, we understood that there are almost 150 plus companies who are using a very similar technology. There are many companies in India itself, even globally. So to differentiate ourselves right from the start, even from a technology perspective, and then making a foundation which ensures that this technology becomes more sustainable, scalable, and even cost effective over the long term, we started looking at different options. So what we landed upon was using desiccant based technology. Now what are desiccants are? Desiccants are materials which have very high affinity to absorb moisture from the air. One very common example of desiccant is silica gel. You would have seen when you buy a pair of footwear or even electronics or even any glass bottle, you will see a small pouch of silica gel. Now silica gel has the property that if you pass air over it, it will start absorbing the moisture. So that was one of the first materials we experimented with. So, and once you have absorbed that moisture, what you have to do is you have to apply heat energy at about anywhere from 60 to 80 degrees Celsius depending on the type of desiccant to release the moisture and then form fresh water out of it. So that was a big I would say point which or idea we started working towards to make it. Reason being, how do we make it fully sustainable in the terms of you avoid using any refrigerants, you're not using a lot of electrical power or a lot of different energy sources which are already existing, but rather shifting that to a more sustainable energy source, primarily solar, which is abundant in a country like India. So that's what we started doing, and we built a very small prototype in late 2017, early 2018, and with that we participated in Water Abundance X Prize. X Prize is a LA based foundation where they were conducting this competition, and out of 98 teams we were the top 5 global finalists. So that got us around $50,000 in grant, and then we used it further to scale the technology. Now what started happening was, now we had some sufficient resources to further build upon our R&D process and make it more cost effective and scalable. And over the process we realized that even silica gel is not a very good material. So there were many engineering challenges which used to come. We are not able to make it very compact, we are not able to scale it fast enough. So we shifted to using something called as liquid desiccants. Now they have very similar properties. It's just that instead of a solid silica gel, you have a liquid salt solution. So in this liquid salt solution, what happens is you have two set of containers. One is called an absorber, where you pass the air and let the salt solution interact with the air, which in turn absorbs the moisture from the air. And once that is done, you pass it to another container called as a desorber, where you actually apply the heat at about 60-65 degrees Celsius to release the moisture and condense it back. Now by shifting to liquid desiccants, what happened was engineering got much more simpler, because it was easier to move the desiccant from one box to another, it being a liquid solution, and it's also very cheap. So we use a liquid desiccant called as calcium chloride, which is second most abundant salt on earth, and it's very easy to get access to, and it's environmentally friendly, and even after it has been used for 15-20 years, you can easily dispose to the environment or even use for some other purposes. So that really led us to unlock, I would say, scalability, in the sense that just last year we had a 20 liter per day system, and in 1 year we have scaled it to more than 3,000 liters per day. So at our current facility in Bangalore, we have a modular system which makes total of around 3,000 liters per day of renewable water every day.
Yeah, wow. I think I'm just amazed by how quickly it's grown, right, in terms of the liters. And one of your angel investors, Mr. Peter, he says that Uravu Labs is leapfrogging towards a decentralized water future, right? Tell us what that entails. Is it is it a B2B? Is it going to be B2C? What is the degree of scale that you're looking at if you're decentralizing it? Talk to us more about that.
Sure. So what really happens is, when you move, if you look at the whole value chain of water supply today, it's centralized, right? So you have a water treatment plant, and it's getting that water source, could be from a large river or a lake kind of body nearby, and then that water is treated and then supplied to whole industries, homes, or even agriculture through centralized pipes, kind of underground pipe network. What we mean by decentralization is shortening this value chain to a point where your sourcing and delivery could be much more nearer. So with the water from air technology, what happens is moisture is present in air all around us, and if you're directly sourcing it from moisture in the air, you're shortening the supply, which usually takes many hundreds of kilometers. You're sourcing water right there. Now, based on the excess where that water needs to be going for the end user, it could again be vary. It could be a bigger centralized facility like ours, where we actually collect it at a more central point and then deliver it to customers in different formats. Or it could be something which is decentralized to the point of where your sourcing and use case is at the same location. For example, your home. So you set up a machine at your home where you're sourcing that water and you're using it directly. So there's a variance in the kind of decentralization which could happen. But in our case, what we're looking at is setting up these much more, I would say, semi-decentralized plants. Could be for a local region, could be for a neighborhood, where you have water production happening at tens of thousands of liters per day. So that costs are also constrained and more effective. Plus, you also get the opportunity to serve a large population. So in our case, we have looked at a model where we are first targeting the beverage industry, and for this beverage industry, we are becoming one of a kind of a co-packer. Now, what does a co-packer do is, instead of just providing water, we are also providing services like packaging, formulation, quality check, and then also distributing it further in glass bottles to our customers. Now, these customers are from the hospitality sector, even from corporate offices, and even many restaurants in and around Bangalore. So the model is becoming somewhat like you have a centralized facility which can serve in the 50 to 100 kilometer radius, and the idea is to get to 10,000 to 20,000 liters per day in any large city, which can serve a lot of population on a daily basis. And as we scale, we'll keep on bringing the cost further down, and for every 1.5 rupee cost decrease, we can unlock many newer markets. So it could also take the shape of a large plant which could be supplying water to a very remote and rural area, It could be a mid to large capacity plant supplying water to a defense base somewhere in the mountains where you can't really get access to water. So there are many use cases and applications which will open up as we scale. But the technology remains fairly decentralized in terms of how it's sourcing and then delivering water to the end users.
Well, that's fantastic, because I was really hoping very secretly that I will be able to go to a store and buy a bottle of water, and I really look forward to that. I want to move this conversation, Swapnil, to something that's very important to me, which is the future of design and then design education. You being a designer, an architect, and you starting Uravu, and then getting into the engineering part of it, and then being this businessman, and then managing everything that perhaps is not as creative as you would like it to be, because then you have the logistics to take care of, the business to take care of. I want to talk about a few value systems that you feel must be inculcated in a designer, a student who's studying design, creating products and services, on all walks of design, right? Because I feel like the change really happens in the way we think first. I can be motivated by what you're doing and go back to saying, oh, I want to do something. But if I am instilled with that value system from day one, about that we all know the climate needs us, and we need the climate more than it needs us, actually, right? So that no matter what we create from now on must have 1, 2, 3 elements. It could be it could be as random as a beauty brand, right? But can I make that beauty brand that has sustainability, which is, I don't want to greenwash it, but those important aspects of it's not going to harm the climate. So according to you, what are these value systems that could be inculcated within the system so the young creatives or young minds across the world can really start thinking differently?
Of course. So when we started Uravu also, this was again, I was very much looking at through a designer's lens of how to look at the whole thing as a big problem. And what I've also learned is that now is the time to look at these kind of problems more in a system levels. Instead of looking at just how you design the product or maybe the user experience, if you like zoom back and then can look at the whole system level, that really opens a lot of opportunities as well as gives you the right constraints to work with. And here I would like to really talk about one of my role models, which is architect and designer Buckminster Fuller. So he really talks about the concept of spaceship Earth, where we all have to work together, and spaceship Earth is our blue planet, which has been there, and there's no operating manual for it. Whatever we have been doing and whatever we building is something out of based on human experience, technology innovations and advancements which have come in. And for a designer today, I think it's really important to look at many of these interconnected links where you can play around and actually build a new model which makes the existing model more obsolete or puts it behind. So it's about always talking or thinking about what could be done next. And when it comes to really applying design, I really look towards Brian Chesky, who is CEO of Airbnb, and he always talks about when he was young, there was always this discussion on how you can bring design to the boardroom. But then now it's time to think that how can designers actually lead and create companies which go and demonstrate that change and bring that change. So I think designers really need to get out of their comfort zone, start thinking more broadly about system levels, start interacting more with engineers, management and business side of things, and really put design elements to a lot of these processes. And I think that really creates a kind of also different path which say an engineer or someone from management might have thought of. Say in our case, when we started looking at this whole industry and there were already many competitors out there, we thought it's just not just about providing water from air, it's also thinking of the whole value chain in terms of, say, if you're targeting the beverage industry, then what do they really need? They need an end product which is made with your water. They just don't need the water. So then how do you, forward integrate and then bring those elements and skills and operational capabilities inside the organization so that you can deliver what is actually required by the market. So I think thinking along those lines really helps designers to even break their shell and then deliver on something which the world needs. And few skills I would say, or real powers which I think designers should have is that of perseverance. You have to keep at it, and I think being designers, architects, slogging so many hours while just completing your undergrad, that has kind of got inbuilt into that. You have to work hard, you have to stay up nights, and you have to keep delivering. So I think those are the things which really need to be inculcated, and which can really help prosper not just the individual designer himself but the whole world as such.
Wow, thank you so much. I think my takeaway here for myself, and of course for the young creators that might be listening, is I think to challenge everything, because I don't think so I ever thought of thinking how can I get water differently. We have other priorities that how can I get this better or whatever, but I think as a very basic primal resource, I don't think so we ever challenge these thoughts. And I think that's so powerful, to not just fall back on the system that has been, but create a new system that can be and then better for the world. And the second thing I think the most, and also going back to my design college and that life, the student life, right? It's full of hard work. Sometimes you really don't know how is this going to help me in the future, right? You start questioning as to, is this ever going to see the light of the day? But I feel, like you said, the belief in yourself and then what you're doing is so important, because nobody else can see the vision, only you can. And sometimes I feel we underestimate the power of our own vision, and we expect others to see our vision and believe in us, which I feel should really change, especially if you want to get funded, right? Because that's what they see in you. Are you believing in your own idea? So no, thank you so much. This is so amazing. I really want to thank you for being here, Swapnil. And I look forward to talking to you again very soon. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is all mine, pal. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.